Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Fantasy Show. Me and Adam are back again with something a little bit different in the off season. We're moving on to our rankings of the players, and we're going to start off. Where else to start off with the quarterbacks for you? We've done a lot of mock drafts recently, so we think this is the next step. So looking forward to this. It should be fun, and yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming up like this as well.
Yeah, I think the plan is, got quarterback. Obviously, the other positions that you're going to be using in fantasy, we'll do them as well. We've got the mock draft stuff that we'll carry on doing. When it comes to the fantasy side of it, obviously it's not going to be every week, but it'll just be something that we put out for you guys. There's loads of stuff. Go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe to that. There's loads of stuff on there. We've got Nat Coombs has just done an interview, Matt Ramage as well. If you want to, any Green Bay fans out there wanna go and listen to that with Fred and Abby. So yeah, I mean, if you wanna do that, there's that, and then plenty of stuff still to come as well for the rest of the off season, and eventually we will get back to the season and games will be happening.
Yeah. And money will be won with our betting show. So, yeah, that should be
We live in hopes. We live in hopes.
So let's get right into it. I mean, this is going to be an interesting one because we are deciding together who fits in what category. And I'm pretty sure over a few text messages over the season, I'm not sure we agree entirely on everyone. So this could be interesting.
I don't know. I feel like it should go pretty okay. I mean, I've done a few mock drafts. I've been in a 5-yard rush. There's like an analyst mock draft thing that we do every month. So, I've done a few mock drafts. I see where people are going and where I feel that they probably should be. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we do, whether there is any agreement whatsoever. But obviously, this is purely for your fantasy team. So if we come out and go, because in the nicest possible way, Aaron Rodgers, love him to bits, not necessarily the best guy for your fantasy team this season when it comes to quarterbacks. That's all I'm saying. Don't everyone lose their mind, but so it doesn't mean that they're where it says elite, it means that they will be elite for your fantasy team, not elite necessarily for the NFL.
How do you want to do this, Adam? Do you want to pick out the elite people first, or do you just want to go from the list that's below us and try and slot them in where we think?
Go for the list, I reckon, and we'll slot them in, and then we'll find out how badly we've done after that.
Well, you can see. Well, we can move them around as we go on, but as you can see, the first face on that list is Tom Brady. Do you want to start off where you think this guy should fit for your fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, Brady, he was the number 3 quarterback last year. What more do you want? I mean, chances are not a lot has really changed in Tampa. There's been a few moves on the O-line where a few of them have gone, but then they have brought in replacements for it. So you do kind of think that they'll probably still be pretty decent. Highest for completion, highest for attempts, highest for yards last year. The run, it's all pretty much the same, to be honest. There's not really a lot of difference. So I'm not saying he'll necessarily be 3rd, but he will be a decent choice for your fantasy team, especially if it's a redraft, obviously. I mean, that would be great. I don't know. I kind of personally, I have him about 7 or 8, really, of the quarterbacks. I don't think he's the real top guy, but I do think he'll do pretty well again. Everyone doubts him, and he just comes back the next year and does it again. So what's the point? You might as well just shove him at the top again. But yeah, I personally think, I don't know exactly how we're doing this, but to me, I think elite, there's only going to be a handful of quarterbacks at elite, to be honest. So I think he's very, very good, but not quite elite. I would have him there.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to argue you down on him then, because I thought you were going to bang him in at elite. And I thought, you know what? I'm saving the elite section for those dual threat guys that run and throw. He's just throw. He barely sneaks into the end zone, does he? And we don't really, you know, he has proved us wrong time and time again, but we don't really know whether the production's going to be exactly the same as last year. We don't know if there's going to be a drop off, which is why I'd probably put him in with the greats rather than the elite for fantasy. So that's a good start for us.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to be honest, I don't really see why it would change. Like I say, apart from a couple of the O-line guys, it feels very similar. So I think it probably will be. But yeah, I think, is it great? Is that what you've got for the second one? Yeah, I think he probably should be in that. That's fair. But he's at the top of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's one of the first guys you're probably going to select out of the great section if you are further down in the list and everyone's gone.
Yeah.
We move on to the next guy, which is Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Burrow, again, another one. I think, to me, I kind of feel that he's similar. I think he's got a lot of the weapons back that he had last year. They've improved the O-line, which should be a big positive for him because he just won't get hit as much. So he certainly has the potential to become elite. But at the moment, I don't think he's quite there. He finished as the QB8 last year. I think he's probably a little bit higher than that, but not quite elite personally. Yeah, he's a great quarterback. I think that's probably where he should be. I actually think him and Brady are probably quite close.
Yeah, I actually think Joe Burrow's got the edge on Brady for me because I think that Burrow has got a bit of sneaky athleticism. We saw glimpses of it every now and again, but now there's a decent O-line. I think maybe that more of that athleticism and using him a bit more to like run as a trick play, I think that might come into fruition a little bit more this year. So I think he might value a bit more because the weapons he's got on the outside and his ability to throw the ball, we all know is fantastic. So I think he edges Brady, but again, he's not that full dual threat, is he? That's I don't know. I'm tempted to put him in the elite, but I think you are right with put him as a high end great as well. You know, we can move these around a little bit later if we decide that we've got some people in the wrong places. Let's lock him in there as a great as well. But yeah, I think he's got the edge on Brady. I think.
A tiny little spoiler. Obviously, not going to tell you the names, but I think there are 4 elite. I've got 4 for it, and I think I think we're kind of being a little bit harsh on Burrow. I think because I think he is incredibly close, and I think that maybe we might see the difference of having a quality O-line this year, and that will push him up. So, but yeah, at the moment, I think that's where
we maybe just need to see one more year out of him, just to be sure on Burrow, because we haven't seen as much as him as we've seen of Brady. So, you know, we know what we're going to get with him.
Yeah.
So we move on to Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr's a difficult one because he's kind of like they've given him Devontae Adams now, and I think Carr is always someone that a lot of people have liked and have always kind of gone, he's all right, but he's not great. I've always thought he was a little bit underrated personally. But if you look at, you just look at the stats and he doesn't move. Like he was the QB 13 in 2021. He was the QB 13 in 2020. 2019, he was 17. You know, it's all very much around that kind of middle of the pack sort of part. I suppose you could argue that he has a legitimate number 1 receiver now, and arguably the best in the whole league. So I suppose in that respect, you would hope that he would sort of push up a little bit. I don't think he's great. I think he's probably average personally. I think he is that middle section. Having said all of that, for fantasy, I do think he is a great option. You know, it's one where if you decide that you want to go away from picking a quarterback right at that, you know, them first few rounds. I had a look at like I said, the mock drafts that I've done, and you sort of like you average out where he goes, and he's going in the 13th round in these mock drafts that we've been doing. And you just sort of think to yourself, you know, a quarterback in the 13th round is your number 1 quarterback. He does have the potential to move up. You know, with someone like Devontae Adams, But yeah, I think personally it's really difficult. Purely for fantasy, I think he's a really, really good option. But I think that average when it comes to his actual talent and where he's going to finish in it, I think he'll probably finish where he normally does. So
Yeah.
he'll be sort of between 10 and 20 and probably the higher end of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he is. I think he's a great player to get. If you get him in fantasy, I think he'll do you well every week. I think he'll score well. I don't think he's going to light up your team and really he might have the odd week where he gets some unbelievable points. I think he's a consistent quarterback to get, which is why I feel like he maybe goes down to the average side of things. Whereas, the two guys we've already got locked in at great, I don't think he's quite there yet. I don't think he's quite at their ability wise to put up the points that they can do. But yeah, like you say, he's got the team to do it. He's going to have a healthy Waller as well. So no one's going to be disappointed at getting Derek Carr, are they? He's just not one of those guys that you're going to go after. If there's everybody on the board and the elite ones have gone, he's not going to be the first name that you go after. And for that reason, for me, he's got to slip into the average section. Do you agree with that?
He's a high average. I think he's a very high average. He's in the same way that we've said of the other two. I think they're close to elite. I do think that he's had the potential to do it. I think what's probably going to happen is he's going to end up in the same position. But as I said, if you don't want to go for one of them big quarterbacks in the first few rounds, you want to take one late on, 13th round. I mean, yeah, thank you.
Definitely. The next one up is Dak Prescott.
Yeah, Dak's a really awkward one. I find him really difficult to measure. I mean, last year he was 7th. The year before, obviously, he was in and out for most of it. I think the year before that, he was number 2. I mean, it's very hit and miss with Dak. He's a solid quarterback. He seems to be going reasonably high. I mean, you're looking at about the 7th or 8th quarterback off the board, which is, to me, I feel like it's just a bit too high. I think I would rather be waiting for, like, as we said, your Derek Carrs, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, them kind of guys instead of him. Yeah, I think he probably should be great because of the rushing ability. He has that potential. I do worry that Amari Cooper's not there anymore. I think that you've got CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. It is a drop down compared to having the 3 of them. So in that respect, it's a little bit difficult. They did draft the receiver, didn't they? I can't remember who it was, who they drafted, but they did bring someone in. I think in like the 3rd or 4th round. So he might be decent for them. But yeah, I don't know with the Cowboys in general. It just feels like they're not moving forward. I feel like they're pretty stuck at what they are, and I think that's probably why Prescott will be around that thing. When it comes to this, I think he's probably great. I think he probably is, but he probably should be in that section compared to average. I think he is better than average, and I think because of the rushing, he has the potential to be great and someone that is certainly a top, like a QB1 in fantasy. I reckon he could easily be in the top 12 again. So
yeah, I'm not. I find it really tough to analyze where you want to put Dak Prescott, because as a franchise quarterback and as just a quarterback for the Cowboys and winning Super Bowls, I don't think he's good enough. Personally, I don't think he is. I think he's found his ceiling, and I don't think he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. But fantasy, it's fantastic, isn't it? You can't. I think we would get a lot of stick if we didn't have him up there. I think a lot of people highly value him. I highly value him in fantasy, and that's the tough thing with what we're doing today, isn't it? Like judging, not taking out your mind of what you think they are as a player and what they are in fantasy. And I think you're deadly right. His stats are incredible. He is really good. They have lost 2 of their receivers that he used a lot. They lost Cedric Wilson as well, didn't they? They brought in Talbot, didn't they, in the draft? And I
That
think
was it. Yeah.
they brought in James Washington as well. I think
Yeah.
there might be a decline in his production, but I think he still is great fantasy wise. I'd love to put him in the average section, but I can't do it because he proves me wrong every single year, and the stats are there, and they don't lie when it comes to fantasy, do they? You know, so they might lie when it comes to winning Super Bowls, but not in fantasy. So yeah, I think he's got to be in the great section. He's one of those guys, like we were saying, that Derek Carr didn't bring. This guy has the potential to put up sort of 20 to 30 points every single week. He's not going to drop into that like 15 to 17 marker, is he? So
yeah, I mean, he really does. I mean, he had 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year. I mean, it ain't bad sort of thing. It's like 37 touchdowns is a good thing. I just feel that his supporting cast is not as good as what it was.
No.
With Amari Cooper going. I mean, like you say, we don't know. Maybe Talbot would be great. It's entirely possible that he could be, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't see it. We've seen with James Washington as well. There's not a great deal there over the last few years. So I don't really. To me, it feels like it's gone down a notch compared to what it was. So I think he might suffer because of that. But yeah, he's still got the rush in, and at the end of the day, it is a bit of a cheat code when it comes to fantasy, as we all know, that being able to rush means that you can get a shed load of points.
Mm-hmm. They lost a few on the O-line as well, which might affect him as well. But yeah, it's still great for fantasy. So the next name up, you can see his face there. He's just had a birthday. This could be interesting. It's Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. Now, given that you're a Giants fan, I feel like I have to say that he's trash because obviously he is. But what's the one below average? Potential.
Trash. Oh, potential, yeah.
Potential and trash. I think actually, when it comes to Daniel Jones, I feel that potential is probably the right word that you put in there. I do feel that there is potential. And I don't think it's got anything to do with Daniel Jones. I think it's all to do with the coaching and the O-line improvements that have been made. I think that's why there is potential for him. But so far, it hasn't been great. And it doesn't look brilliant. And it's like last year he had 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's not brilliant. But I feel like now with the coaching and the O-line improvements that they've made, that this is now his chance. So I do feel there's potential there. I don't know exactly what round he's going in. I imagine he's probably undrafted actually in a lot of redraft leagues, especially one quarterback ones. I can't imagine he would be drafted at all. He finishes the QB 27. I don't think I would be drafting him unless it was as a backup. But I do feel there is potential there that he may be able to do something this year if they can get that O-line fixed.
Yeah, I would want to put him in the potential one when it comes to fantasy, just because we saw last year that he had something different to his game, and there was that element of dual threat to him at the start of the season. Before he got his injury, I think he was trending up massively on people picking him up and starting him. After he showed that they were willing to use him in a bit of the run game, and he started to get a bit of a relationship with a couple of those wide receivers at the start. So if he can replicate any of that again, like I said, like we're not judging whether the Giants are gonna, win the Super Bowl. We're not judging whether they're even going to win their division. We're seeing what he can do every week, and I think he does have potential to be good for fantasy. I don't think he's anywhere near as the quality of Derek Carr. So, we can't talk about putting him at that high, but I think he has potential fantasy, and it's only for 1 year. This is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's his year to move that. I don't think I'm not out on him. I would pick him as a gamble as my backup quarterback, or no one's picking him as their starter, like you say, but backup. I think he'll go. I think people will pick him.
Yeah, I think when it comes to doing this, I think with the potential section, that in reality probably means backup quarterback. So it's like, because potentially they could come in for 1 week and maybe win you a week if they have a good performance. So yeah, I think that he's definitely one that there is potential there. We've spoken about the wide receivers before. They can't be as bad as what they were last year. So
They're not as
hopefully,
injured as what they were last year.
yeah, well, that as well, yeah. So
Yeah.
hopefully with the O line, that will make a difference. And yeah, I mean, I don't see why he doesn't have the potential.
So we move on to the next guy, which is Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold. It didn't really work with the Jets, and last year we kind of all thought, here we go, he's got a new situation with a team that's kind of got some weapons and good young defense, and they're going to do okay. And they kind of did nothing, and it all went a bit wrong. And he was the QB 28 with 9 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, and it's all just a little bit like, there's been lots of rumors about Baker Mayfield potentially being traded there. They were looking at quarterbacks in the draft, but decided not to. I think he'll start. I think he will be the guy who I think I wouldn't want him as a starter. I'm not really too sure if I'd want him as a backup, to be honest. I don't know with him. I don't think he's going to do a lot. The one thing that really stands out to me when you look at the stats that I'm currently reading off of Fantasy Pros, you look at the stats and he is so low on pass completion, and that's such a problem for him because he does he does rush. It's not that he doesn't do much. He is a rushing quarterback, but he doesn't do tons of it, and you just feel that pass completion percentage is so poor that for someone who's been around now for a few years as well, I wouldn't want him. So I'd put him in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, last year had to be his year that he proved himself to have polished up that game, that it was being at New York Jets that was the reason for the turnovers, for the bad decisions, for the poor game management, all of that. Because the Panthers, on paper, their team is good. So if you can't deliver in that team, I think there's something wrong. And he continued to have those same issues with turnovers and staying healthy and cementing himself as the leader of the team. I think he's lost the locker room a little bit there. And the fact they brought in Matt Corral as well, you're saying he should be the starter. If things go well in camp, Matt Corral, I thought he was great at college. So I think there's a chance that he could push him out quite early. So even if he was starter for week 1, if he has a bad game, you're always going to have those question marks, and he could be out, and you could have wasted one of your picks there. So I don't think he's got any value whatsoever. I don't think he'll last the season. So I don't think he's got any value in fantasy at all. So he's got to be trash. He's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he will be left on the board. I don't think anyone's gambling.
Yeah, agreed.
We move on to the next guy, which is Davis Mills.
Yeah. Again, it's like he had a worse season than what Darnold had. He was the QB 29. I know it's only his first season. In fairness to him, he did have 16 touchdowns, so he did show a little bit. There's no rushing at all, really, with Davis Mills. It's just not something he does. I think if they could get some decent players around him, then I think that he would be worth looking at. But I don't see it. It's like, Brandon Cooks was there last year. What else is there? I mean, help me out. What else actually is there in Houston?
I mean, they brought in John Mechie. If John Mechie can stay, obviously he's coming off an ACL injury from college, but I rate him. I think he's a good, solid slot receiver. I think he could be a bit of a game changer when he's healthy. But is Davis Mills the guy to produce the goods from him? I think you need a top quality quarterback to be throwing to these guys, not an up and coming guy that showed some potential last year. I don't think that's enough to.
He's not one I'd be drafting. I wouldn't have him. I don't think that he's going to do a lot. I think he could have the potential to do something, but I feel like there just isn't the people around him. I just don't feel like the team is strong enough, and they scream of a team that just they didn't really improve a great deal. They haven't really done anything, and they just carried on as they're doing. And I think it goes to the coaching as well. It's like in the nicest possible way. It feels like the coaching staff are just carrying on, just keep on ticking over, and they're going to end up with a really high pick next year. I don't think they're going to do anything, and I don't think that Davis Mills is going to do anything because of it. And yeah, I wouldn't have him. I'd have him in the trash.
Yeah, I agree. He's not worth the gamble. He hasn't got a lot of value. You could take the gamble and him have a game where he scores less than 10 points. It's just not worth it. There's probably better people to look at that's going to be on matchups. So yeah, there's going to be another guy that's going to be left on the board at the end. Another guy, really interesting one coming up next. Guy that I was real hot on out of college, and that is Justin Fields.
Yeah, Fields is a really, because, as we were saying, we seem to be going down the board as the number. This is the QB 31 last year. Yeah, Justin Fields. Obviously, he didn't play all the games. Andy Dalton played some of the games as well, so that's probably why he was a little bit lower. Another one who's really difficult, I wouldn't have him. I don't like what Chicago are doing. Well, I do like what Chicago are doing because I'm a Green Bay fan, but I don't like what Chicago are doing for Chicago. Yeah, I feel like they're hanging him out to dry a little bit here, and he's not. They're taking the best weapons are going. Robinson is gone. On the defense, Khalil Mack has gone. Anything that was really, really good is going, and he's kind of stuck there, sort of he's going to be the one who's trying to sort of like piece it all together. The only thing about Fields that he does have about him is he does rush the ball. He rushes it a lot. So that is something for him. So I think you will get points for that. Having said all that, he's a backup at best. He's not getting drafted. I would probably say there's many, many options that are not going to be in the top. Like say if you're in a 12-team league and everyone drafts 2 quarterbacks, well, that's only 24. I reckon there's still options before him. So I probably wouldn't go there myself. So yeah, I think it's unfair on him. I really do. I think the team aren't doing it for him at all, and he's kind of getting screwed over a bit. So for me, I'd probably put him in the trash, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put him in the trash. I'm not having it. I think he's too good of a quarterback to be in there with the guys that we've currently got there. I think he is a game changer, and I think he has the ability to put that back on that team on his back and drive them forward and get some points. I think if he showcases himself next year as being the guy, we'll be talking him up a lot bigger the following year. This year, again, I think you're right. I think they haven't done anything to support him. They haven't done anything to help him. They've got Mooney, who I'm sure we'll be talking about when we talk about the wide receivers, because he's a quality receiver. No one's talking about him, but that team just isn't there as a whole, is it? I personally think you should be putting Fields up in the potential. I think if he's got the right matchup, I think if you've got him in your squad, you've got him in and he's got the right matchup, he can produce you good points. I think as a quarterback himself, he has the ability to score points with the rushing and his throwing ability, which I feel like he offers more than the 2 guys we've got in trash at the moment.
Yeah, I do agree in that respect. I just think that the O-line is not great. I suppose in a way you could argue the O-line's not great. Players are going to end up sort of like just disappearing, and he's going to have to rush in order to do something. So I suppose in that respect, there is potential that he could get some points for you. It's a really bad situation that he's in. I feel like he's being hung out to dry a little bit. Yeah, he might do okay. I mean, like I said, he was the QB 31 last year, but he didn't play all the games. So you would expect him to be a little bit better. I could see him maybe sort of being around that kind of Daniel Jones sort of section, but he's not for me.
Can we put him in the potential section?
Yeah, put him in the potential.
Yeah. Good deal.
Bloody Ohio State people, honestly, they do my head in.
He's a good quarterback. You know, you can't put him down there with Sam Darnold. It's not fair. It's probably going to be another one up for a big debate. It's Jared Goff who's up next.
Yeah, Goff. I mean, he's been given some weapons. In fairness, you know, he's got St. Brown there. He's now going to have Jameson Williams there when he's fit. You know, Goff got to a Super Bowl. You can't knock him for that. You know, it's like he did do it. You can come out and say as much as you like about Sean McVay and all of that. He was the guy out there throwing the ball. So, you know, he had to do something. So, yeah, but again, I feel like it's a bit of a weird one with Detroit because I think we all kind of felt like they were going to be a bit rubbish this year, and this was going to be Goff's last year, and then next year they'd have a high draft pick and they'd get a decent quarterback. That was kind of how we all felt it was going. Whereas for now, there's quite a bit of optimism around them. I think it needs to be calmed down a little bit, but they've kind of got something there. I think I don't think they're going to do anything wonderful, but I think they could do reasonably okay. I think when it comes to fantasy, he was QB 24 last year. He's solid. That's what he is. I wouldn't. He's probably potential, to be honest. He's not average. He's certainly nowhere near Derek Carr. So yeah, I'd probably say potential. But I feel like he's got a lot more chance of doing something than say like Justin Fields does.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff's on that edge between average and potential. I think he's in between that gap. I think if he was on a different team, we would probably put him in the low average section. I think if he was still with the Rams, you'd put him as a low average. And I had him in the year that he was great with the Rams on my fantasy team. And what you find out very early is he produces great numbers when they can use to play action. He's great at it. So they need good O-line, good run game. And they have the potential to do that. I think the Lions have actually got one of the top O-lines in the league. Like, it's got to be a top 5 O-line with the names that are on it. And they've got DeAndre Swift as well, who is a great running back. So he's got the pieces there for him to score points in the way that he has done when he was at the Rams. So I think he is between potential and average, but I don't think he's quite at average yet, just because he's on that Lions team and it just doesn't have enough consistency week in, week out. So I think, yeah, he's a high-end potential, isn't he?
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I think he certainly has potential, and he's certainly better than the two in trash. So
it'd be interesting to see where you put this next guy. It's Justin Herbert.
So he's my number 2 quarterback. So at the top, please.
Is that all set? All done? Just straight at the top?
Yeah, at the top, please. Yeah, no, he's the number 2 quarterback for me. You know, he's second most passing yards against. The only one who was better was Brady last year. 36 touchdowns. He had a few interceptions. He does need to sort that out. But that offense hasn't changed. It's not going to change. So why is it going to change? You know, it's like it won't. I think he's good. He has the potential to rush. He's a very good rusher of the ball. Yeah, I think that Herbert is definitely elite. He's going to be around for many, many years. And for fantasy, he's going to cost you a lot. He's, you know, I've averaged it on the 4th round for Herbert. It's going to cost a lot. I doubt I will have him in any of my drafts because he's going to cost so much. But if you want a top quality quarterback and you don't want to have to deal with the waiver wire apart from on his bye week, he's the guy. He's definitely one of the top 4, and I've got him as my number 2. So yeah.
Oh, he's not my number 2. But he's definitely in my top 5. Definitely in my top 5. I thought he hovered around in the area of the 3 guys that we've got in great, but he is definitely better than them. I feel like he offers similar value to them, but that guy's got a cannon of an arm, so the interceptions are going to come at some point because he's got that ability to get himself out of trouble with his arm. And like you say, that team is really good. There's no. A lot of people are real high on the Chargers this year to be top of their division. I've seen a lot of polls with them coming out at top.
Yeah, I saw one definitely. I don't know if they'll necessarily come top of it. I do think that the other thing that maybe we're not mentioning as well, it's going to be an absolute, it's going to be a fight to the death in that division. You are going to get high scoring games. You are. It's just that's how it's going to be. But there's been quite a few high scoring games in that division for a few years now. But now you've got all 4 teams that have the potential to really kick on. And I think you're going to get some really high scoring games. And that's just going to push his yards up, to be honest. Because if it's a shootout, he's going to have to throw that ball. And yeah, I think Herbert.
I think the added fantasy for him is value is Austin Eckler as well. The amount of times he's going to get points of just throwing it sideways to Eckler, or a little bit forwards, should we say? And then Eckler do the rest. You love Austin Eckler, and he's going to be great he's great for any quarterback for the check downs, and he'll get him points.
I mean, he did it all the time, didn't he, for Philip Rivers as well? It's it's not going to change. It's just how he is. So yeah, I mean, he's obviously elite easily, I think.
Yeah, I would put him in there too. So the next guy up is Jalen Hurts. Where have you got him, mate?
I've got him as the QB 7. I think that Jalen Hurts, a lot of people need to start realizing that this guy is good. He gets quite a lot of what I feel is disrespect because he's not the greatest thrower. He really isn't. His passing stats are not as good as the top guys, but his rushing yards are insane. And when it comes to fantasy, that is what makes a difference. He now also has, with AJ Brown being there, Devonta Smith still there, Dallas Goedert there. I mean, they're 3 really high quality receiving options that he's got. The O-line is very strong. I've been saying it too many times that it hurts me that I think that the Eagles are actually going to have the potential to really do something. I think Hurts could be very big this year. I wouldn't have him as elite. I don't think he's there yet, but I do think that he is I think he's potentially a very good quarterback. I would have him in the great section because, to be honest, I think him and Dak are not too dissimilar. I know he hasn't shown it yet, but for this year, I think he definitely could be. I mean, Dak was the QB 7 and Hurts was the QB 9. So I think they are in the same sort of ballpark personally. And yeah, it's the rushing yards. It just really makes such a big difference. And so I'd have him great. He's going at about round 8 at the moment, which, it's not the worst time to take a quarterback. You could have got yourself 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers and a tight end. So it's not the worst time to take a quarterback. And can't really. I think this year's going to be a big year for him.
Yeah, I don't know why people are so hard on him. The guy was great at Alabama. The guy was great at Oklahoma. He's not like a one-team wonder that was, they were all singing, all dancing. He's proved himself in 2 different teams, and he's proved himself straight at the back at the Eagles. And like you say, they've got a better wide receiving core. They brought in Zach Pascal as well, didn't they? So and equally, when you look at the runners that they've got behind him, with Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott, they all assist in running and catching, don't they? So there's a lot of weapons in and around him, real close with Goddard as well. So I think that increases his fantasy value, and also what increases his fantasy value is he's got to play the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Washington football team. He's got to play them all twice. So I think that's That's good. That's good. That's good for fantasy. That is, I think. Prior to this conversation, I probably would have put him in with Derek Carr. I probably would have put him in with the average guys. But when you put it like your argument with putting him close to where Dak is, it would be hard to not think about putting him in the great. I personally think he's still on that average cusp until we see it. I think this year could be it, and then next year we'll be going, oh yeah, he's great, put him in the great. Are we being a bit too premature with putting him in straight into the great, or is he still on that Derek Carr level? Does he still need to prove himself?
I think he probably does need to prove himself a little bit, but the fact is like you are talking about a guy who was the QB9, last year. So to a certain degree, you could argue he has proved it already. Yeah, look, I think he's, like I said, he seems to be going around about as the QB7. I think he can get up to that and he'll be fine with it. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably the one to go for.
So you, as I made the call on Fields, you can make the call on Hurts. Do you want him in great?
Yeah, of course we want him in great. Come on.
I mean, we've got a Cowboys quarterback and an Eagles quarterback, both in great.
I never said it was going to be good for you, okay? You're just going to have to deal with it.
Wait till we get to Kirk Cousins. Get him in elite. So next up is Jameis Winston. Nearly forgot his name then.
Yeah, he is a difficult one, Winston. I mean, you've kind of got to go back to 2019 when he was with the Bucs and how he performed then. So it's kind of a really different situation that he finds himself in. Back in 2019, he was the QB3 with them. So it goes to show he can produce a high performance. The thing with the Saints is it's a difficult one as to where exactly what they're going to do with this season and where they're going to end up. I think that they think they've got a good chance. I'm not so sure. I think that they might struggle a little bit. But yeah, Winston, I think he's average. I think average is probably a good spot for him at the moment. I think with him not being around for the last 2 seasons, really, it's difficult to have him any higher than that. He does have great potential, but I think that he's better than all of the potential guys that we've got. So I would probably put him in average.
Yeah, the worry with the Saints was what they had at wide receiver, and now they've got Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry. They've also got Alvin Kamara, and we know he can throw the ball. So yeah, he's easily in there in the average. He's a lot better than the potential guys. I think he was a potential guy 2-3 years ago. He's moved up from that. So yeah, I'm happy with him being in the average section. I think it sits him well, and he could have a real good year. That team, the Saints, could be a team to watch out for. I think a lot of people aren't talking about them, and they've done a lot. They did well in the off season. So I think we were down on them after the season finished. Okay, so next up, it's not going to take us long to discuss this. It's Josh Allen.
Number one quarterback not by a long way, but I feel that he is the number one quarterback around. He not only does he have a great passing game, he has the rushing yards as well, and he's going to use it, and he's going to get the touchdowns, and he's the QB1 going off the board. He's like round 3. He seems to be going about the same time as Mahomes. It's like normally when one goes, the other one goes next. Yeah, it's the best one there.
I'd be more in on this guy than I would be on Mahomes. He's for a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl contention and conversation all season. He's QB1 and RB1 for his own team. So that's what value? What more value do you want? He's the best fantasy quarterback around. So let's move on from him. We don't need to talk too much. Okay, let's talk about this great guy coming up next. It's Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, yeah. I mean, you kind of get the same with Kirk Cousins most of the time. He's actually not that bad for fantasy.
He's great at fantasy.
He's decent for fantasy. It's like this year that's just gone past. It's like he had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It was a good year for him, I might add. He hasn't had quite as high as that for a couple of years, but he's good for fantasy. He doesn't convert it into wins, but for fantasy, he's good, and that's really all that matters. Would I have him instead of Joe Burrow or instead of Dak? Probably not. Would I have him with sort of like Derek? I think Derek Carr. I think I'd probably go with Derek Carr over him. But I don't know. I think I would pick Cousins over Winston. I think given the weapons that are there, the fact that you've got Justin Jefferson there, I think is a massive plus for him. So yeah, it's the only thing with the Vikings is obviously it's new coaching. That's the only other thing. You don't quite know where they're going to go, but they've had a defensive coach for a long time, and he's been putting up good numbers for fantasy. So I'd put him in average, but he's probably in the middle of the two that are already there. To be honest, he is the Vikings. He is mediocre, and he is the middle of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I like him for fantasy. I think if you do get him, you're not going to be disappointed or upset. It's a similar conversation to what we're saying with Derek Carr. So he's got to go alongside Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I mean, new coaching staff, regardless. They've got Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. It's pretty simple what you're going to do. So he just slots in and does what he does every season. So yeah, I think he goes in there. It's a perfect spot for him. You might be unhappy having him in your team, but no one else is going to be unhappy. Next guy up, I'd be interested to know where you're going to put this guy. It's Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan, I have to say. He doesn't do it for me. He's going about the 5th round at the moment. He's sort of QB5. I don't think I would take him personally. It's just too expensive for me for what you get. There's a lot of rumblings about whether he's going to play. He's not at OTAs. You've got contract talks and all that. I think that'll probably all be sorted out and that'll be fine. I think purely because of the rushing, you have to have him. You have to have him in the great section. I think he really is. In the great section. I think he is probably better than Hurts. And I think he's better than Dak. So I think because of that, you have to have him in the great section. He's not for me though.
Good. I'm glad we haven't got Freddie on the show because you're on my side with this. I'm not super hot on him, but there's a load of people out there that have him in the elite section for being one of the elite quarterbacks of the whole entire league, not just fantasy. And there's a lot of people real hot on him being one of the best. I think he's one hit away from being injured for the season every game, and that always worries me. So yeah, I'm more than happy to put him in the great because I think he is a great quarterback. I just don't see the elite quality that other people are telling me he's got. I just find him to be great.
I think the elite quality that they probably see is the rushing. I think it is very much that he is a little bit different, isn't he? That's the thing. I think that he's very Marmite. You're either going to love him or you're not. It's that simple. And I think because of that, you're going to get people that are really, really high on him, and then you're going to get people that go, yeah, I mean, he's fun to watch, but I wouldn't want him on my team. And that's pretty much where I stand on him. It's like he is good to watch. He is entertaining, but it's not what I would want personally.
So the next guy up is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so Jackson obviously missed quite a bit of time last year, finished as the QB 15. He would have been a much, much higher finish if he had been fit. Another one, loves to rush the ball a lot, but there is a difference, and this is something that I feel I've been saying for a while now. They don't let him throw the ball enough because he actually does have the talent there, that it just isn't part of the game plan. Having said all that, he, like Murray, is going around 5th round at the moment, but I would be so much more happy taking Lamar Jackson in the 5th round than I would Kyler Murray, because I think he's much better than Murray. I also think the team are better. I think the Ravens, they had loads of injuries last year, But if they can keep all their players fit, then they're going to be a force to contend with again, as they always are. So for me, I think he sneaks into elite. He's my fourth in the elite section. I think he sneaks in there.
Yeah, I mean, I would put him straight in elite. It was not even a conversation for me with Lamar Jackson. I think I was out on him when he first came into the league and thought he couldn't. He needed to. He didn't throw a very tight spiral. He struggled with the ball, but then he came back, and the following year he was delivering a lovely ball. And I think he's sorted all those problems out. He's shown growth every year, and he is easily the best runner at quarterback that there is in the league. Looks like they're going to be going back to that 3 tight end set that made them so formidable 2 years ago. Love the 2 guys they brought in Collar and Likely at tight end, along with Andrews. So although they've lost Marquise Brown at wide receiver, Bateman was fantastic, and those 3 guys at tight end, he's going to have all of his running backs healthy again next year. Fingers crossed, touch wood, they're not going to have the injuries like they did before. So I'd easily drop him into elite.
Yeah, I think he's a bigger build, isn't he, as well, compared to Murray? So I think there's less chance of him getting injured. I think, yeah, for that, you definitely.
You know, I think after Allen and Mahomes, possibly Herbert have gone, he'd be the guy I'd probably be most hot on taking. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so next up we've got Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. I mean, where did Drew Lock finish last year? Did he barely played, did he? Because Bridgewater played most of them.
Well, I think he played 2-3 games.
Yeah, I don't think there's much there, really. I think Seattle have just got him because that was part of the trade. They haven't got anything better. They got Geno Smith and him, and that's it. They're in full rebuild mode. Yeah, trash.
I mean, yeah, I think you've got to put him in trash for now. I personally don't think he is as bad as what everybody's making out at the moment. I do think he is got potential, but we can't put that in there yet.
I don't see much difference between him and Darnold.
Darnold's had the chances. I don't think Drew Lock has. I think when Drew Lock's played and been healthy, he's been good, but he's struggled to stay healthy. And when he came back from his last injury, he didn't look like the same guy. Prior to that, I thought he looked good. I thought the Broncos could have a guy there. But yeah, he's just not had chance to show it. So this could be his year 2. But until I've seen that, he's got to go in the trash. So yeah, let's just drop him in there. You don't need to say too much more. Mac Jones.
Yeah, Jones is an interesting one. I think there's a ceiling to what he can do. He's going to be very accurate. He's going to do the basics well. I think he's that kind of guy. He's not much of a rusher. He can rush a bit, but not loads. Yeah, he's not one that I don't think I'd be looking at myself when it comes to fantasy. I think he, I mean, like I said, I had a look at some of the mock drafts that we did, and he didn't really get drafted. So I think most of them, there was about 18, 19 quarterbacks that got drafted during that. Yeah, I don't really see why I'd draft him. He has potential to maybe move up. Devontae Parker being there will help. But I think in reality, he's not going to get you enough points most of the time. So I'd probably put him in potential, but I wouldn't have him at average.
Yeah, I'd struggle not to put him in average. I understand the potential. The thing I like about him is he is the starter, and there's no one going to be looking to try and take his place.
Yeah.
I think they're really happy with what he does and his production. But this is the Patriots is a run-first team with that plethora of running backs that they like to rotate, and he's just a bit piece to move the ball forward. I think he's great for the Patriots as a team, but maybe not so great in fantasy for fantasy value. So I understand, and I'd be happy to fantasy wise, put him in potential, but real life, I'd have him in the average. Kind of fits well with the Goff as well, I think, as a level.
Yeah.
The next guy up, I'm sure we're not going to talk about him too much. It's Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes, elite, still elite. He's always going to be elite, isn't he? I've got him as the number 3. Apparently, you've got him as the number 2. I personally think that a lot of people are saying, oh, they're still going to be amazing, and they will still be amazing. Don't get me wrong; they're going to be a great team. They've got plenty of weapons there for him. Tyreek Hill was a get out though. The speed that he offered was a get out. Anyone who, as a Green Bay fan, anyone who thinks that MVS is going to be anywhere close to Tyreek Hill, you are going to be sadly disappointed. And so it's not going to happen. He's not going to be as much of a get out for him as what he was before. It's going to be a little bit harder for him. So he's going to have to sort of do a lot more. He's currently going in the 3rd round. Again, I'm not taking him in round 3. I get why people would, but I wouldn't want him. I think he will drop a little bit because of Hill not being there. He's still going to be elite. He's still going to be elite for many, many years to come. And yeah, I think that's why you have him there.
I actually think that their wide receiving core is the best it's been in a long time. I actually think that Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, Hardman, Sky Moore, I think they're 4 people I can get on board with, whereas before I've always just got, and Kelsey as well. Before I've just gone, oh, they've got Tyreek Hill. Don't really like any of the others whatsoever.
So I think what you'll probably find is that the averages of these guys might make up more than what it was before, because it was only 2 guys before. But the fact that we're saying it was only 2 guys before means that Hardman's not anything special. MVS is a poor replacement of Hill. Juju Smith-Schuster is a bit in and out and has a tendency to pick up injuries every now and then, so that's a different one. Sky Moore, I don't know so much about. He might be good, and he might be someone that they need. Obviously, Kelsey still being there is great, but you've got Kelsey another year older, and you do just start thinking that it's not as good as what it was. So I can understand where you're coming from in that respect, but I just don't see it. The only thing that where you think with Mahomes is that he's going to be in a lot of games where there's going to be a lot of points scored. So in that respect, maybe they will have, he's going to have to, there's going to be a lot more Buffalo style games sort of thing because of the other teams. That's why I think he will be near the top. I think it might have more of an effect on what some people think.
Hey, we're not arguing that he's not elite, so he's in there. Next guy up is Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I don't know really. This is an indictment on me. I don't really remember Mariota that much.
Oh dear, has it been that long?
Yeah, he was at Tennessee, wasn't he? I don't really remember him a great deal. I've been watching it for about 4 or 5 years, and obviously he was playing during that time, but he obviously wasn't making much of an impression on me anyway. Like I say, I don't really know. All I can tell you is that he's not being drafted in a redraft at the moment. He's not being drafted. The team, it feels like there's not a lot there. They've got Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Cordero Patterson, and that's it. Now there's some decent options, but we don't know how Drake London's going to be because he's never played in the NFL. Obviously, Pitts was all right. We saw them, didn't we, against the Jets over here? And I mean, I wasn't particularly impressed. And I don't know if Mariota's really going to make much difference. I would probably put him in the trash. But I feel that I'm being very harsh because I don't really know.
I mean, I don't think you're being harsh. You guys, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He was good at the Titans, wasn't great. I was shocked that they got rid of him, but they've made so much more progression without him. I think he's good for the Falcons in the way that he's been around the league and he's can have a bit of stability with the youngsters. But I can't see him lasting the season. I think Desmond Ridder will be in that team before long. So I think he's just there to help bring him along and just be a good guy there. I don't think he's there to be the face of the franchise and the future. So he's got to go in the trash. But I think he'll do a good job what he's there to do. So next up is Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan. I think he was really good at the Falcons. Had a couple of bad years, but then the Falcons had a couple of bad years. I think he's solid. He's Mr. Dependable, and he's everything that the Colts probably need. He's for the team. I think he'll do really well. For fantasy, again, he's another one who's not really getting picked up. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against having him as a backup. I think he'll be really solid, someone you can plug in, or even someone you can pick off the waiver wire. I think he'd be decent. You know, he was the QB 20 last year, so you wouldn't want him as your starter. But yeah, I think he's in a much better situation now, and so I can see him progressing a bit. Obviously, there's not a lot of rushing really with him, but I think average. I think it kind of defines him to a certain extent.
I mean, yeah, I put him in average, and we're in a 14-man league, and if push came to shove, I'd have him as my starter. I think he'll do well.
It's a difficult one because obviously, like when you look at who they've got, the Colts, it's definitely a run-heavy team, and that's the thing that always kind of puts you off a little bit. It's like you got Michael Pittman there, who would be a really good option for him. But you feel like there's a lot of other teams that have got better. And so that's why it's like you look at that and you go, would I have Matt Ryan over Derek Carr? Probably not. And I think that's the difference. So, yeah, he's average. But I feel like when you think of the styles of the teams and the sort of options that the quarterbacks have, I think I'd go for Carr, Cousins before him.
Well, looking at some of the names we've still got left to fit into this, I think even like you say, 14-man league. There's going to be 14 people before him, so you know he's in the right place where we've got him. Next up, your boy Aaron Rodgers,
the mighty Aaron Rodgers. Unfortunately, not elite. Doesn't have the weapons to be elite, and he's not quite at the top anymore when it comes to fantasy. He was the QB 6 last year. But obviously, he had Devontae Adams last year, and that is going to take a knock. You have to think it will bring him down a little bit for fantasy. I think great, easily. I think he's in great. I would have him before Murray. I'd have him before Dak. I would probably not have him before Burrow or Brady, though. So I think he's in the middle of great.
I think I agree fully. I think he is there.
Well, so you should.
You know, I think you're playing him down a little bit. Obviously, I think he's not going to do as well without Adams, but he's still fantastic. He's still elite.
He's still as an NFL quarterback, he is an elite quarterback by one of the best, if not the best, by a long way. But purely for fantasy, I think that a lot of people need to.
He's not a dual threat, is he? So
no, he's not. And the other thing is, and this is something that I think a lot of people need to understand, is that I think there's going to be a change in the way that the game is played in Green Bay. It's not going to be throwing the ball over the place. The run game is going to be relied on a lot more. It feels very much like LaFleur is going back to how he was when he was the offensive coach in Tennessee and he relied on Derrick Henry. It's going to be relied on Jones and it's going to be relied on Dillon a lot more. And the passing game is not going to be quite as high. Because Rodgers doesn't rush the ball as well, it just feels like he's going to come down a little bit. And so I think he'll still be top 10. But I don't think he'll be quite what he was for fantasy.
Okay, let's move on. Russell Wilson.
Again, pretty much the same. With Wilson, it's difficult though because he's in a new team. You don't know exactly how that's going to pan out. You have to think he's going to be amazing now, you know, just because of all the weapons that are around him. I think he's the very top of great. I don't think he's quite an elite. I think he's the very top of great for me. He's currently going around the 9th round. I mean, that's the sort of time that I would look to take a quarterback. Him and Brady are pretty much going hand in hand. I think I'd rather go for Wilson just because I think the games are going to be a lot more offensive because he's in that division. There's going to be some high scoring games. And I think he's going to be really good there. And it's going to give him a chance to sort of get away from Seattle, which I think is going to be massive for him.
Yeah, I think he's elite, and I think he's elite in fantasy as well. I think you could punt after him after the top 4 guys that we've got on there, and you'd be well in for a shoe in for good. I think he's going to be great at Denver. Happy to put him at the top end of great though. I think I overrate him because I'm a massive fan of him. So I would personally in fantasy want him on my team because I like him. Whereas that's not for everyone. So I've got to take that out, and maybe he is actually top of the great.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I mean, the thing is that his rushing is not quite what it was.
Yeah.
It's still a bit, but it's not quite what it was, and it's certainly not compared to some of these guys like the Allen and Jackson and all that. But yeah, I think he's the top of great. Yeah.
Okay, so we move on to Matthew Stafford.
Stafford's another one who's a little bit difficult to work out. He was the QB5 last year. I mean, he had a great year, and you sort of think to yourself, well, that was with the Rams, and it's pretty much the same again. I mean, you know, yeah. I mean, you've okay, OBJ's not there, but they've brought in Robinson, so it's pretty much the same. He's another one who he's probably in the great section. He probably is, but he's probably near the back end of it.
I would take him before Jalen Hurts and Dak.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. I mean, I do. When you look at it, I feel like maybe Murray would be a little bit higher, but I just feel like, yeah, I think that's probably about right, and you just sort of feel like that is kind of where he sits. I don't think anything's going to change with him. I think they're going to have a good season. They're going to do really well, and he'll get a lot of touchdowns. And you know, I mean, he had 41. He had the highest of the whole division, the whole NFL even last year. And yeah, I think he'll do really well again. He might not get as many as that. They might kind of work it out a little bit more than what they did so they won't be as good as last year, but they're still going to be pretty good. And yeah, I think he'll be there.
He was a stat machine in Detroit as well, so you know, it's nothing new to him. Okay, so Trevor Lawrence.
Lawrence is a really difficult one to do, as I've been saying a lot, but Lawrence really is a difficult one to work out. He finished as the QB 22. You've got to put him in potential. Like for me, he has to go in potential. Urban Meyer's gone now, which is only a positive for Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I think new head coach, a few more weapons put in there for him. I think he's got a good chance of maybe doing something, and maybe potentially actually doing something for the Jags and pushing them up a little bit for a change. But yeah, that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think fantasy and personally in his team, I think the word potential is going to be used a lot. So I think that category fits in perfectly. He's probably the top end of the potentials because of how good he actually is. We wouldn't be saying he's a potential if he wasn't in Jacksonville. If he was at the Patriots, maybe we'd be putting him in the average section. So it's just unfortunate he's there, but the talent's definitely there. So the potential's there. So we move on to Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, Tannehill. I mean, he finished as the number 12 last year, so I mean, it's a good. He's a decent quarterback. There's been a lot of bad press on Tannehill over these from the playoff loss and just everything to do with bringing in. I've completely forgotten his name. Who was the quarterback?
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis. Yeah, completely bringing in Willis. So it was. It's been a bit of a rough few months for Tannehill. I think average is probably about right. I think him and Derek Carr are not too dissimilar. I would have him. Yeah, I think that's probably about right. Tannehill does rush the ball a lot more than some of these guys, and he's always won, as we have been saying all the way through in the preview show last season. He's always won for a quarterback sneak, which we know you love. So, yeah, I mean, Tannehill. I feel like Tannehill and Cousins and Ryan, firstly, they all look the same looking at them now. But the other thing is they are all average. Average is the exact word for these guys.
Yeah, I think if you are a run first team or you've got a good running back, these guys are great to have in your NFL team. If you're not heavily reliant on your quarterback, they are serviceable, do a job, know what is expected of them. So yeah, I think they all fit in that category. Lovely.
The other thing, just quickly about him, he's not being taken.
Is that because people think he won't?
Probably because of Willis. That's the only thing that's the worry. How long he stays there. I think if there's any pressure, if they have a bit of a rough start, then I think you're going to find that they might move to Willis pretty quickly. But yeah, he's not being taken. I think as a backup, he'll be fine.
So next up is Trey Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance. That's a difficult one. I mean, we don't even know if he's actually going to be the starter with Jimmy G still there. It's very odd that Jimmy G is still there. So that's a difficult one. There's not really much in the way of stats when it comes to Lance either, because he didn't really do much. If he does start, he'll probably be pretty good because he's rushing and he'll be all right. But I mean, who knows? It's a really difficult one. I suppose in this respect, for this particular one, potential is the place to put him, because there is potential that he could do really, really well. But we just don't know.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, they've got to start him, haven't they? I mean, there's a lot of talk out there that they're still uninspired by what he's producing in training camp, and they're still not sure he's the guy they thought he was. But you've got, I think at this point now, you've got to throw him into the fire and the deep end and say, it's your team, see what you can do. And if he doesn't do, maybe Garoppolo comes in. But yeah, I think they made a mistake there, and Garoppolo could have still been the starter for another year, but he's definitely got potential, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So next up is another guy we don't know whether he's going to start or not. It's Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, like you said, another one we don't know. Obviously, Kenny Pickett has just been drafted. He is the Pittsburgh guy as well. I mean, Trubisky is on the depth chart, but who knows? He wasn't great in Chicago, but the one thing I would say is I don't think the situation helped him. I feel like they didn't really do a lot to help him either. It was a tough time for him now. Basically spent the year at Buffalo last year, didn't really do anything at all, and that was it. So it's difficult. I think potentially he could do okay, but I mean, I wouldn't be drafting him anywhere. I don't think anyone is going to be drafting him. I think he's going to be just someone who's going to sit on the waiver wire. I mean, there's a good team around him. That's the only thing I can say. You know, the O-line, okay, it's not the best, but, you know, the defense is decent. He's got some good weapons there. And so I think because of that, there's a chance that he might be able to do something, but I wouldn't have him.
Yeah, I think until we know whether he's the starter or not, you've got to put him in trash, really, haven't you? Because he might not play. I don't
You
think he
just want to
is.
do that to annoy Freddie. I know what you're up to.
I don't. I like the Steelers, but yeah, until we know if he's going to play or not, how can you put
Yeah,
him potential?
I think he's kind of he's on the border, isn't he, of potential and trash. But yeah,
I'm happy to put him in the potential log because if he does start and he is the starter, it's a good organisation. You know, he's been thrown into a good situation. They've got a good running back. They've got good wide receivers. So I could put him as low end potential. Where do you want to put him?
let's put him in the trash just to annoy Fred.
Yeah, Freddie will love that when that comes out. Okay, next up is Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, so Tua was the quarterback 26, but obviously there has been a lot of change in Miami. Tyreek Hill has now turned up. That's a massive positive for him. They've also got Armstead from the Saints on the O-line. I think that's going to be a huge positive for him as well. He's still kind of last year he kind of flattered to deceive a bit, but we've got a new sort of coaching set up there now as well. It's without upsetting the Tuanon community and all that, I feel that it's potential rather than average. I don't quite think he hasn't shown anything to me. He's not getting drafted in the first 16 rounds of most leagues. He's someone that you would have as a backup rather than a starter. But he does have the potential to really push on this year because of the weapons that they've given him, and I feel like it's a year where he has to show something this year. So I would have him as potential, but I probably wouldn't be drafting him.
Yeah, I put him in somewhere close to Winston, but not quite. I think that's where, if I was personally picking between the two of them, I'd probably go Tua just because for situational. But
my only thing with Winston, Winston has shown that he can do it.
Yeah,
that's the difference for me, which is why I don't think he's quite there.
So I put him as the highest end. If we can get him there, can't get him there. I put him as the highest end potential. He's just I think he's above potential, but not until we've seen it. That's where we've got to go.
Yeah.
So next up, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, really difficult one, Deshaun Watson. Obviously hasn't played in so long. That's the real problem. And then is he going to play? You know, we just don't know what's going to happen this year at the moment with Watson. I would probably just avoid, just purely because you just don't know. He's being drafted in the 9th round at the moment, so he's being drafted as though he's a starter, as though it's guaranteed that he's going to be starting. And it's really difficult because you just don't know what the NFL are going to do, whether there's going to be a suspension, how long the suspension is going to be. For Dynasty, I'd have him right up there, because he is someone that is, you know, he's signed for 5 years. He's going to be great for your team for a long time. For redraft, it's just not worth the risk. I don't think there's too many better options. I think because of that, I don't think he's going to play the whole year. I think you've got to feel they're going to do some form of suspension on him. I think because of that, I'd probably slip him into average rather than into great. I actually think he is a great quarterback. Has a few personality issues, bless him, but apart from that, I think he's probably average. And I think he's probably towards the back end of it.
Yeah, value-wise, he's got to miss games. The MLB have just suspended a guy for he's got a big suspension for something similar. So the NFL have got to ban him. They've got to. And you've then got to ask the question. This is one probably for the big show. You've got to ask the question: if Baker gets a chance to be the starter, because
I don't think he will. I don't think that'll happen. I mean, he can, but it's going to be a case of whether or not they keep I mean, they'll keep him because no one will pay for him, but I don't know if he's going to want to help them out in that respect.
Just think, if you did and you played well, someone might come and trade for you.
I think someone will anyway.
Yeah, but could be interesting with Watson.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Wentz, it's not been great over the last few years. He failed in Philadelphia. He failed in at Indy last year. He's now on his third team. He hasn't been brilliant. He hasn't got anyone to hold his hand now. You know, Frank Reich's gone. The Eagles drafted him. He's got to prove something at Washington. They got Terry McLaurin, and that's about it, really. It's not great for him. I don't see him doing much. I wouldn't have him at all.
Yeah. If he couldn't do it at Indy, he's not going to do it at Washington. They brought in Jahan Dotson. They've got Curtis Samuel, but
they have a few weapons. They're not completely void of weapons, but they're not a great team. They're really not.
He's not the decision maker.
No.
To take in fantasy, you know, he makes bad decisions. There's always going to be turnovers. Like I said, he didn't do it at Indy. That was the best situation for him. So I'm going to stick him in the trash. Last one, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson's another one where I think what we're seeing a lot here with the quarterbacks that came out last year, you see Lawrence, you see Lance, you see Fields, you see Jones, and they're all in the same section. And I think Wilson's going to be going in there as well. They've brought in some decent players and they have the potential to do something, but I feel like the Jets are still going to be the Jets, and it's not going to be all wonderful. He was the QB 30 last year. He missed some games because basically they needed to take him out for a bit of a break. Was what it was. It wasn't working, and he came back at the end and he showed that he could still do bits and stuff, but he needs to improve. And they've come out already and said that he looks like a different person, that he's beefed up a lot, that they think he's going to be a much better quarterback this year than what he was last year. But then I would be surprised if they said anything else. I think he has potential in the same way that the Jets do have a bit of potential to maybe improve, but I won't be taking him.
Yeah, I'm not hot on Wilson. I don't think anyone will take the risk on him, but you've got to put him in potential because they have some weapons. He is got some attributes that, you know, fit well for that team. So you've got to put him in potential, really. If you put in the other guys in there, he's got to go in there. It's where he fits. For now, until we see what he can do this year. He might drop to trash next year. Hopefully he does. I don't like him. But yeah, he's potential. So that's everybody in. That's everybody locked in. We've got them all in. Quite happy. I wouldn't move anybody.
No, I think that's probably about right, to be honest. I mean, we'll put it out on social media. We'll let everyone have a look and have a moan and all that sort of thing. I'm sure Kyler Murray will cause a bit of a moan, and I'm sure Deshaun Watson will cause a bit of a moan as well. But yeah, I don't really see anything that we've done that's particularly out there. I do think the one thing that we probably should, you know, you look at, as we were saying about the rookie quarterbacks from last year, and they're all in potential because they're in their second year and they do have a chance to do something. But I think at the end of the day, I think they'll all be on the waiver wire. Like I said, Lance was getting drafted in the 13th round just because I think there is that rushing potential that everyone's taking a bit of a gamble on. And Lawrence was being drafted right at the end of most people's drafts. So I think that's another one where, because it's a new coaching staff, but the rest of them I can't see doing much. I really like them average quarterbacks and the sort of like the back end of the great ones that you can kind of like pick up in the 9th round and the 13th round. I think for me, that's how I normally draft. And there's some really decent quarterbacks there, and I don't think you need to be going out splashing on the top one.
Yeah, hopefully this helps people if they were unsure and they want to get one up on their mates going into the season. So hopefully this helps. Coming up, we'll go through this in order. We'll do running backs next, wide receivers, and then if you guys are loving it, we'll maybe do a small one for the tight ends or anywhere else you need us to do. But yeah, we'll continue to do these. So yeah, keep watching, liking, rating, subscribing, watch everything else. But till then, guys, thanks for joining, and see you soon.